So I don't know.
So let's value you for a while. Let's talk about this album.
Okay,
Let's get into it and let's move into a
okay,
place where you're happy because there's lots of questions I have about the record and about the songs. Sound good?
sounds good.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to talk about your collaborators. Who are they and how do they contribute?
Well, the two main like producer collaborators were Luke Halpin, who is my buddy from Bettman and Halpin, and my longtime friend and my longtime, creative compadre. And then a new person to me who I discovered in the last, I guess, year and a half, 2 years of creating this music, a man by the name of Tom Capek, who works at the Colorado Sound Studios here, just actually conveniently not too far from where I live. So he's super talented. Luke's super talented. Both these guys are monster musicians in their own right and amazing players of what they play. Tom's a keyboard player, and he's really good with the MIDI stuff, which, for those of you who may not know, sometimes you can create, like, for example, a drum track or a bass track or a string section through using what's called MIDI, which is an interface into the computer, and you use a library of sounds and you play it on a keyboard. So he's a master at that. And so he did quite a bit of that on some of these songs are entirely made, quote, in the box. That's what they call that. And then Luke is, of course, an incredible musician of guitar and strings and just creativity. And he and I have already made what, eight records together as Bettman and Halpin. Well, he was kind of late to the party, so 7 records together. But he is just is such a great supporter. So like there are a couple of songs where I was working on it. I was working on, like, for example, Gravity is one of these songs where I was working on it and I had an idea in my head and I had written it out and it sort of lived as a thing, but I just wasn't happy with it. And but I just couldn't let go of the kernel of the idea. Like the kernel of the idea was burning so bright for me. But I felt like what I'd written just wasn't quite it, wasn't serving it. So I brought it to Luke and I said, "Help, can we break this down and come at it from a different angle?" And he actually came up with the sort of do, 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 do on his guitar, which was this, I don't know, it just felt like this kind of cosmic, spacious musical idea, which it inspired me to kind of rewrite the song, and Gravity changed from being about more like one-to-one relational idea to the relation to one's own mortality, really.
Hmm.
Um, and just what it is to be a soul in a human body, you know? And the soul doesn't age. And the soul, if anything, just gets brighter and brighter. But the body, there's a timeline on the body, at least the way we live now and with what we know now. So it's kind of about that. And so that ended up being a co-write, which actually, so then I rewrote it and we sort of cobbled together what we had. But then we took it into the studio, and this happened with a few songs where they actually got written kind of in the studio, which was a new thing for both of us to really create the song, like the structure of the song, and even some of the words and some of the basic foundations of the song came together in the studio. And that was actually really fun to do it that way with these sort of just wide open possibilities. What ended up being the case with that one is that there's no real time signature.
Yeah.
It's really just, I mean, there's a consistent beat, but it was so kind of improvised or I felt in the singing of it that it in the learning of it to perform it live, it's been it's been challenging because there's no time signature.
What is this that I've written? Hmm.
Or at least know, like, have to learn it as it as it exists in the recording because we have to hang on to some of those, like the moments when that little doom 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 happens. Like that's oh, that's what reminds me of what's coming next, you know? It's been an interesting challenge.
Yeah. So you create
So
something
like
that's
that's an example.
it's nice. I was just thinking, you create something that's bigger that you couldn't have created by yourself, and you have to rise to the challenge of being able to play it. And then you become better through your own efforts. It's a little like lifting yourself up by your own bootstraps kind of thing.
Yes, but it is in relation to others, like, really, and the same sort of growth happened with Tom, in the context of working in studio with him, in that he brought his own tools, which are a massive understanding of, um, well, funk and R&B and like genres. Like he's got this depth of knowledge in pop music, in what makes it what it is, um, which has been such an honor, really, to get to work with him and to get to be in a creative space with him. But even within that context, we both we created a trust between us where there was the ability of, like, oh, what about this or what about that? Or no, 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 let's make it simpler. Like I remember there was a song that he was creating a bass part for it. I'm trying to remember which song it was. Um, oh, I think it's actually Won't Settle for Less. Um, it's either that one or To Be Loved. But we kept having to simplify and simplify and simplify. And he was like, I don't think I've ever played a bass part this simple. Like, I don't think I've ever played. Or what one of them was with the drum part. It was like, like I was like, no, 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 less, 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 less. Let's take that one out. Let's take that one out. We don't want it to feel like a groove yet. Um, so like the sort of sandbox of that with other people, that absolutely is that's my favorite part. That's my joy in this. Like it's so fun and it's so fun to work with people who A have skills I don't have and B have just such tremendous talent that it's inspiring to just interface with that, you know.
Yeah. The
So,
production on this album is stellar, and the variety of grooves that you create is it's pretty impressive. There's really so many different types of songs here, and they're all just produced to the max to be what they need to be. It's really fun.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I I'm very proud of it. Really proud of it.
Yeah.
I, you know, I love the eclecticism in it, even though I know it gives me a marketing problem.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
But I mean,
I
okay,
like the
let's say
ride,
you did 10 versions of the same song. I
right?
mean, you're up against everybody else that's doing that. Are you really going to be in a better position if you do that? I don't think so.
Who knows? I can't do that anyway, so I'll
I
never
mean, you
know.
can't do it anyway. So you would
Not
just have
me.
succeeded in failing is
I
all you
would
would have
have
done.
succeeded in trying to be something that I'm not.
Right. And that never works,
Is-
ever.
That's
Doesn't work for,
never the happy path.
no, there's tons of celebrities, you know, famous music stars who had great success on their second and third album. And then they come around and, they're trying to duplicate that success or they're trying to change for the times. And you hear them like, you hear these great 70s artists and suddenly they're trying to make an 80s record and the 80s sound just sounds stupid on them. And it's just horrible, and, they had to try, right? They have to stay current. New bands are coming up to kick them off, but it's a trick. You're in great company.
Yeah, evolving as an artist. And two, that's another part is I have this fan base from the 8 albums that I've done with Luke, with Bettman and Halpin. And, I've made a different thing. It's a
Yeah.
different thing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are some of those fans who are like, huh, I miss Bettman and Halpin. Like they
Yeah.
like
Right.
what that was, they're not necessarily on board the new thing that I'm making. Some of them love it. Um, so yeah, it's the daring to grow, daring to evolve. Um, interfacing with other people. Like if you're, you know, I suppose it happens in other paths as well, but so many paths are just like, okay, I have a service. This is a service. It's a service that's recognized as valuable. I get paid to do this service. And you can grow and evolve within that. And you're still offering the service that's a valued service, you know,
Yeah.
whereas it's such a personal thing to be an artist. I mean, unless you're in a cover band, but, you know, to be an original artist, it's a very personal thing. You're just creating what you're creating. And you grow and change, people may or may not like it. Like, you know, Dylan went through that.
Yeah, they all did. They all did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me talk about one production element that you were actually in full control of, and I want to ask you about your choices there. And that has to do with the way you sing. Your voice for me, as I listen, I'm hearing you invoking Joan Baez. I hear you invoking Barbara Streisand. I hear you invoking Annie Lennox. And you're in great company here. These are great voices, but this is not a current sound. It's a very potent one. These are very potent artists. But this is not a sound that's in people's ears right now. This
Yeah.
particular style of singing will come across as, anybody that's, of a certain age is going to be like, oh, yeah, there's that. I remember that from a long time ago. And then, people who are today will be like, why are you singing like that? Who sings like that? Where's the pitch control? That kind of thing. So was this a conscious choice? I sing like I sing. I'm not going to, or did it just come out, in spite of your efforts, did this happen? Or talk about your singing choices.
Hmm. Yeah. Interesting question. I've actually gotten ABBA references more often than any other,
I can see that.
um, which is also very retro. You know, the singing path is an interesting path too. Um, you have the voice that you have. This is true for everybody. A voice is as unique as a fingerprint. And I have come to accept that my voice is my voice, and I'm never going to sound like Billie Eilish. I personally don't care for that style that's very, very popular right now, especially with female singer-songwriters. It's sort of this whispery, talky thing. Um, I personally don't care for it. I can enjoy some of that music, but I sing with my full voice. I just sing with my full voice. And I try to sing what the song wants.
Hmm.
So I change how I use my voice depending on the song. And this has been true my whole career with Bettman and Halpin as well. Some songs want that like big, belty, anthemic power thing. Some songs are very intimate and very personal, very, just like close mic'd and much less energy coming out, much more just small space. Let me whisper in your ear. Some songs, I mean, some of the songs are intentionally retro, like, well, for example, like Love Doesn't Lie, which is what I think track number
It's track number 5.
five. I can't even keep track of my own record. Anyway, that
Very
is
Streisand. That one is
totally
very Streisand.
throwback.
Yeah,
You think of Streisand with that?
very much. Or Sinatra.
I was thinking like even farther back. I was thinking like Billie Holiday, like,
Yeah,
smoky piano bar before there was any kind of, production at all.
right.
Um, so for me, that one is as pure an impulse musically as anything because it's all about the voice and the piano. And that's totally acoustic. So that, and I love like I grew up listening and loving that old stuff, the sort of the roots of jazz and musical theater, Ella Fitzgerald and all that stuff. So, I mean, that's definitely an influence in me as a musician and as an artist that never goes away. So, I mean, that song and then To Be Loved, I sort of think of in the same kind of world. Although To Be Loved is more, maybe more Streisand, actually. I don't know. It's more soaring, a little more. I had R&B in mind. I had like I actually took that song. That song was a bear to produce.
Yeah.
Um, because I wrote it intending for it to sound kind of like old school R&B with that like, backup singers and that kind of classic sound. But I wrote it in 3/4. And honestly, it wasn't until I was working with Tom Capek where I was like, okay, this is the thing and this is how I want it to sound. And but it wants to have this R&B feel, but R&B is not in 3/4 ever.
Right.
Um, and he was like, "Yeah, I get it. I totally get it." And he completely dialed in that the vibe that I was looking for. Whereas other people, I'd brought that song to them, they'd be like, "Oh no, this has to change and that has to change, and you can't do it in 3/4. If you're going to do it in 3/4, you have to change this, or you have to." Like there were all these following the rules of that genre that just was killing the song.
Hmm.
So it was an interesting challenge, that one. And
You've
then
used, you've used the words "what the song wants" several times, and I know what that means. At least I think I do. But there may be people that don't know what you mean by "what the song wants." Can you talk about that?
singing. Yeah. Can I talk about it? It's a felt sense for me. So I I guess I really do sort of experience being a songwriter, kind of like being a channeler, kind of like being a channel. And I, of course, am the filter, and my own experiences will impact what is coming through. But I often feel like what is coming through has an essence of its own that I, as the artist, am bound to serve. So a song can come through with its words and its melody, which is usually what comes through me, words and melody. And they usually come in relation to each other. I mean, every song has its own journey, but often those two kind of coexist pretty quickly for me. And that will dictate and sometimes I'll hear the production as it's kind of coming through, or when I sort of dial in the chorus and I'm hearing it and I'm sort of singing it in my head. I'll hear like, oh, I want horns, or I'll hear I want backup vocals, or I'll hear like this just wants to be so, 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 so simple. Um, so for me as a creative, as a songwriter, I feel like I am in service to the thing. And the thing, the way like what the song wants occurs to me, it's a kind of listening, I guess. It's like, and sometimes I don't hear anything and I just have to sit there with it. And maybe one of my other collaborators who's also brilliant and talented will bring an element in and I'll be like, "Oh, oh, oh, yes. Oh, yes. Let's go further on this path." And now I'm hearing this. Um, so does that make it clearer?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, I happened to catch an interview with Warren Zevon a little while ago. I've recently got into a Zevon kick and started listening to a lot of interviews with him. And he said something kind of funny. He said there's no fiction and nonfiction sections in songwriting. He says it's all meshed up together. I listen to these songs, and some of them seem like they're about you, some of them seem like they are to you, and some of them seem like they are from you. Like, you're singing to me. Oh, now you're singing to you. Oh, now you're singing about something. Talk about these three things and, how much they mix on purpose and how much it just happens that way. I've written
Curious to know
songs and I
from
didn't know
you,
they
like,
were about me until a year later. And I'm listening and I'm like,
right.
oh, I wrote that for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious which ones hit you as if they're me talking to me.
Oh, well, we're going to talk about some of the songs I found most interesting next. And we can
Okay.
dive right into
Okay.
that, but you can talk about it now.
Well, I think I'm kind of a naive creator. Um, it's sometimes okay, I'll talk about one that was clear, like I knew where it was coming from and I knew who I was talking to, and that's never give up. Um, I had a professional experience which ended badly and was one of those bad endings where you kick yourself for not having seen the red flags sooner. You saw them, but you kind of ignored them,
Yeah.
and you thought, oh no, there's still something to be gained from this. I will continue down this highway, this red flag highway. So, I mean, that's is to just take us back. That's one of those patterns I've been looking at in the past year. But
Look at the pretty red flags.
oh, pretty red flags! There must be a festival.
Yay.
Oh, I'm so excited. Um, yeah. So anyway, there was a professional association which left me um, in a sort of, I don't even know how to really verbalize this. I guess I had to choose to continue creating, to continue dancing, to continue on this path that I was on, despite the sort of car crash that had happened personally, and the disappointment and the reveal of having been manipulated and lied to. And um, so Never Give Up was birthed from that kind of like, screw you energy, like I'm going to
Yeah.
do it anyway, screw you. Um, so that was a very direct sort of creating, speaking to a person, but then, in songwriting, it always gets bigger than that. So it always becomes more than that because that has limitations. But the essence of screw you, I'm going to do it anyway is really universal. It's definitely cultural. It's definitely daring to be an artist in our culture, the way we've created it and how we value things. Daring to be an artist is that song. Um, Everybody sits on the sidelines and has their opinions, but nobody knows what it is unless you're doing it. And that Brene Brown, Daring Greatly, she talks, I think it's that book where she talks about you're either in the arena or you're in the stands. And if you listen to the people in the stands when you're in the arena, it is not helpful. Um, so anyway, yeah. So that's an example of, I guess, a more conscious. But then a song like You Need to Know, um, actually, I wrote that earlier before the disillusionment and reveal for this same person that I was in relation to, and working with creatively. And I wrote it, so I thought, for him, as sort of like a gift of compassion and wisdom for him. And then as life happened and things, that fell apart, and I continued on my path, then I was listening to that song in the studio and I was like, oh, oh, this is for me to be
Yeah.
hearing, and I didn't consciously write it for me. So I mean, and I sort of believe in the greater spirit of whatever, and that was no mistake, but I was not a conscious participant.
Maybe the best reason to write songs is to have them be a gift to yourself at a later date.
Well, it is a gift I am very grateful for. I have listened to that song a lot. It has been balm for me often. And I know it isn't just for me because I do know other people who have that one on pretty high rotation.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean those are the best gifts when they not only soothe and feed and nourish you, but everybody else who needs it.
This is my favorite song on your record, and I'd love to talk about it a little bit.